from one city to another, we still are under oppression. The Palestinians are still under apartheid. There is still ethnic cleansing happening in Gaza. So although you don't see these information in the media, these campaigns against the Palestinians are still going strong. There is now an effort to remove people from a Palestinian city called the Lid, which is in Jerusalem. This is a historic area that they're now renovating for illegal Israeli settlers. So we do not support the detention of Palestinian children. The number of Palestinian children in the last month that has risen over 33%. Still, there is no comment from our president against the illegal settlements. Still, there is no statement from the president against Israel continuing its illegal settlements in the Palestinian lands. So either you support Israeli-mediated apartheid, ethnic cleansing, and genocide, or you don't. And so I really appreciate you guys being on the right side of history, standing up with the Palestinian community, and keeping your voices being strong. So I really appreciate that. So I want to pass it to my friend from the Colorado Palestine Club, Abdullah, and he's going to give us a little bit more information. So here you go.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Cool. All right. So, two things before I get started today. So, the first thing is, so this morning near Ramallah, Israeli occupation forces, they killed a woman named Ibtisam Kabana. She was a former political prisoner who was released about a week ago, and she was walking near a checkpoint, and they opened fire on her. And they killed her, and they left her body out on the street for hours, and they didn't give her any medical attention. And sometimes I feel like we just look at Palestinian lives as numbers and as statistics, but they're not numbers and statistics. They're people, and you know, they have a right to liberty and happiness. And I just want to have a moment of silence for Ibtisam. The next thing that I have before we get started, I want to do a quick land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we are on today is the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute nations. We recognize the indigenous peoples of these tribes are the original stewards of this land. As these words of acknowledgement are spoken and heard, the ties these nations have to their ancestral homeland are renewed and reaffirmed. So I want to thank you guys all out for coming out today. I know crowds are getting a little bit smaller as the weeks go by, and that's okay. You know, we're still out here, we're still showing up, and honestly, personally, I really like these smaller crowds. I feel like they allow more intimate conversation. They allow us to kind of meet each other, make new friends, and strengthen our community bonds, and I think that's really important. So in that same spirit, I'm going to just focus on one thing today, and I want to just arm you guys with some information. And there's also going to be homework at the end, so pay attention. So the issue of Palestine can be pretty overwhelming. You know, there's so many different facets to the occupation. There's so many different aspects to it. You know, whether it be the siege on Gaza, the geopolitical landscape surrounding it, airstrikes, you know, all of it. And I feel like a lot of times people try to encapsulate the whole issue in one speech or one conversation. So, like I said, I'm gonna try to keep it on just one subject today, and it's gonna be on sort of maybe I guess a small issue. I feel like a lot of times we talk about the bigger issues of Palestine and everything that's happening, and when it's really the smaller issues that have the most on the lives of Palestinians on the ground. So the topic I'm going to focus on today is the village of Silwan. So Silwan is this beautiful village right outside of Jerusalem. It's about 10 minutes outside of Jerusalem if you're Israeli, and it's about 2 hours outside Jerusalem if you're Palestinian. So the village of for decades has been resisting the Israeli occupation. Israel has had a plan for Jerusalem. It's really had a plan for all of Palestine, but Jerusalem specifically. They want to get rid of every single Palestinian in Jerusalem and get rid of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and build their temple there. And this is a plan that they have had for a very, very long time. And for years, they've been chipping away at the people of Silwan. Slowly, one neighborhood at a time, one apartment at a time, one street at a time, one family at a time, just enough not to make the national news, but regularly enough to slowly move out all the Palestinians from the neighborhood. So I'm going to talk about the ways that they do this ethnic cleansing, because that's what it is. This is actually the textbook definition of ethnic cleansing. So one of the ways that they take these properties is that they'll say that a property is abandoned. So basically the municipality will come up to a house, they'll go inside the house, and they'll see that there's nobody there. And they'll say that the house is abandoned. So they'll take the house and they'll give it to settlers. Now, of course, the day before the municipality comes by, the Israeli police will come by first, and they'll arrest everyone inside that house. Children, cats, dogs, doesn't matter. They'll arrest them all. They'll take them, hold them in an Israeli cell for a few days. While they're being held, the municipality comes by, and they say that there's no one living here. So then they take their houses. So that's one of the ways that they do it. Another way that they do it is by buying the houses. And I say buying because they use very nefarious means to buy them. Whether it be through extortion, through forged documents, through using dead witnesses, like saying, oh, this guy, he said that this house is mine, but he's dead, so you can't prove it and it doesn't matter. Or they'll just straight up go into their houses and just beat on them until they take the deed. There's really no level too low for these settlers. And the third way, well, there's many ways, but the third way that I'm going to talk about today is that they'll dig tunnels underneath these neighborhoods. These are ancient neighborhoods, and they'll dig tunnels underneath them to weaken the foundations of the buildings so that these houses will either completely collapse or will slowly start to become dilapidated. And this kind of brings me to present day and what's happening right now in Silwan, and specifically the Al Bustan neighborhood. So in Al Bustan, there are 1,500 people right now, 1,500 Palestinians that are ordered by the Israeli government to vacate their homes in the next 21 days. So they are being forcibly removed from their homes right now as we speak. They have 21 days to vacate. And in fact, it doesn't just stop at that. Israel has also ordered them to demolish their own homes after they vacate. If they don't demolish their own homes, they will be fined $28,000. So let's just let that sit for a second. I mean, I'm Palestinian and I can't even imagine that. Can you imagine if someone came up to your house where you grew up, where your parents grew up, where your grandparents grew up, where your great-grandparents grew up, and told you that not only do you have to leave, but you have to demolish that home too? I mean, it's reprehensible. But this is the everyday life. This is the everyday life of Palestinians around Jerusalem. So let's talk about why they're doing this. Why is Israel doing this? Well, other than the fact that they're a racist settler colony. But why are they doing this specifically? So this kind of ties back to the issue I talked about with the tunnels. So Israel has basically said that all of the homes in this Al Bustan neighborhood were either built or repaired without proper permits. So they're calling these houses illegal, and they're saying that the people have to leave. So ignoring the fact that it's ridiculous to expect an indigenous people to ask for permission from an occupier to build on their own ancestral homelands, ignoring that fact, who issues the permits? Israel issues the permits. I mean, if you think that Israel is going to issue a permit to a Palestinian to build a home, obviously that's not going to happen. So, and barring that fact, 98% of Palestinian permit applications are actually just rejected right away. It's just not going to happen. So when people look at the occupation, they usually see the soldiers, they usually see the warplanes, they usually see the destruction of the homes, but that's not really where the occupation ends or even where it starts. The worst facets of the occupation are actually these sort of mundane, so to speak, aspects of it. It's these courts, it's the judicial systems, it's the municipalities, That is the real occupation. The IOF is just the military wing of that occupation. But in fact, the entire Israeli government is built to subjugate one people and benefit another. The entire government, top to bottom. I wonder where they got that idea from. So some of these families have attempted to sue the local government, the Jerusalem municipality, to fight this. I mean, obviously these are very symbolic lawsuits. They're not going to win these, but they've tried. So they're taking them to court. And in fact, a few days ago, Israel has deferred the ruling on that case for a month. And the reason that they did that is because of you guys. And it's because of everyone who's spoken up over the past month and who's raised their voice in disgust of what Israel is doing. But this is by no means a win. What Israel is hoping is that eventually we will stop caring. Is that eventually we will stop talking about Palestine, we'll stop talking about Silwan, and I'm hoping that we won't do that. I'm hoping that we'll never do that we will never stop talking about Palestine until it's free. So I'm wrapping up here, but I told you guys that there was going to be homework. I hope that I've armed you with some information today. And what I want you guys to do when you leave here today is to just talk to one person about Silwan. Just one person. Tell them the story of Silwan. Tell them what is happening in Silwan right now. And just educate them. It can be anybody. It could be someone who couldn't make it today. It could be a friend. It could just be a random person. But just spread the information. This is an information war. And information is our biggest and only weapon. And in fact, Zionists are losing the argument, but they're not losing it fast enough. Palestinian homes are still being stolen. Palestinian land is still being stolen. Palestinian children are still being killed. So we have to keep our foot on the gas pedal, and we have to keep pushing. The last thing I want to say is that I've honestly, in my whole life, I've been going to rallies like this since I was very young, and I've never been particularly optimistic about the issue. I've been hopeful, but I've not been particularly optimistic. But the past month, seeing the outpouring of support from the entire world, seeing the direct actions like in Vancouver where they're stopping a ship from docking, like in Elbit in the UK where they're preventing arms from reaching Israel, direct actions like that make a huge difference. And seeing that and seeing you all still out here a month later chanting for Palestine, it truly does give me hope and it truly does give me optimism. So thank you all for coming out, and free Palestine.
A couple of chants. Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Long live Palestine.
Long live Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Long live Palestine.
Long live Palestine.
So again, I just want to thank you guys for your energy and for your support. I'm going to bring up Neil Feldman from the JVP. We have a lot of sponsors and supporters that have helped us throughout this, many years, decades of work. So I want to bring up Neil to come to share a couple words. And Sadia too.
Thanks everybody for organizing this and for coming out. So, as an anti-Zionist Jew, I want to say the Kaddish prayer for the Palestinians who have died at the hands of Israel now and since its founding. Kaddish is a Jewish prayer that we say to commemorate death and celebrate life. We want to mourn Palestinian martyrs and celebrate the steadfastness of Palestinians resisting Israeli oppression. So in the prayer, when we say Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, we want to change this because, of course, it uses the name Israel to Bein uvein kol yoshvei tevel, which translates to not peace upon Israel, but creating peace among us and among all the nations of the world. We don't agree with Zionism, nor the exclusive nation state of Israel or any nation state. It has led to apartheid and ethnic cleansing against Palestinians, as against so many people throughout history. Please join me in honoring the Palestinians and struggle with Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei dechol beit yoshvei tevel. Ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'yimru.
Amen.
Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitaleh. Shmei d'kudsha richu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechamata. Da'amiran be'alma v'yimru.
Amen.
Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim v'einenu u'vein kol yoshvei tevel. V'yimru.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'imramav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. V'einenu u'vein kol yoshvei tevel. V'yimru. Amen. Thanks.
I'm gonna bring up Adam also to come say a couple words.
Free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Long live Palestine!
Long live Palestine!
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Hello to those that don't understand what Assalamu alaikum means. Peace and blessings of Allah be on everybody. It took me a while. 20 minutes before I got here, I finished writing what I was going to say today. It was not easy. So I've never done public speeches. Forgive me if this sounds horrible. So I want you guys to remember a number. 971. Since the year 2000, 971 children have been reported killed, and that's only the ones that have been documented. Who knows how many innocent children have died and gone undocumented? The world doesn't even know about these children. The world stays silent. These kids no longer have a voice. Of the 971 children reported dead, 88% were Palestinian and 12% were Israeli. So that means out of 971 reported children killed, 855 of them were Palestinian. That means in the past 21 years, 116 Israeli children were killed, and the world was far from silent about it. Palestinians were deemed baby killers and terrorists for 112 kids, while 855 remained dead, but they were just, it happens. 855 children died and had no voice in the world. They were to forever be silent. Looking into the crowd, we see some children. There's a little boy standing there. Take a second and think about it. That little kid that's supporting Palestine, that cute little baby that you see holding the flag saying, "Free, free Palestine." It's adorable. We laugh about it. We smile. We think it's the cutest thing in the world. But just imagine things being opposite, because there's places in the world where that kid wouldn't be alive today. Sorry, it's a little hard. 31% of the children as of 2006, Palestinian children, were killed at the age of 12 or younger, and the majority were killed as a result of injuries sustained either to the head, chest, or to more than one place of their body. Want to hear some? Since the start of this conflict, 68 pregnant women have not been able to access hospitals, being forced to give birth at the border checkpoints, resulting in the deaths of 4 women and 34 miscarriages, bringing our new total of casualties to 889, and 34 of those never had a chance to say a word. Today we honor these children, and not just them, but all the innocent lives of these Palestinians that were senselessly killed by an apartheid regime. We will not be silenced. Our voices will be heard. These innocent children will be unsilenced by our protests, our screams, our shouts. Their legacy will live with us. Our legacy belongs to them. I want to take another second to talk about the right of education. In 2016, 206 education-related violations were documented in the West Bank, affecting nearly 30,000 students. Many children have to study in schools with little protection from the heat, The cold, some face long journeys to school, delays at military checkpoints, harassment, violence, military activity in and around their schools, or through military areas and firing zone. Meanwhile, in occupied territories, children walk safely with comfort and protection to school. Imagine for a second what that's like, not knowing whether your child will come home or not. In America, we sometimes do that. We had one hit home here in Colorado.
Is somebody staying here with the equipment?
Yeah.
Can I leave my petitions here?
Yeah.
There you are. I was like, why's coming out? Oh, I gotta notice it. Cut the classics to stream, and I was like, well, I see his camera over there. He's here somewhere.
Yeah. It died, but I'm still out.
Did you get a new tripod yet?
Yeah, you like it?
No. This is so small. It's emasculated. You deserve better.
Emasculating yourself.
Yeah, you're bigger than that.
What are you doing with your life, dude?
Listen,
You went from 5 feet to 3 fucking inches. Dude.
it's a handful still, and you know,
I guess that's what's important.
it weighs less, so it's easier on my muscles. But I'm gonna end this feed and start all over, folks, because I died and I don't have anybody here anymore. How y'all been?